Hey, this is Andy here with Libertarian Revolution, and I'm coming to you today from the Libertarian Party of California State Convention for 2020 in Culver City, California. And my guest today is Kevin Shaw, a local Libertarian Party activist in Los Angeles. And Kevin has a very interesting story to tell about how his free speech rights were suppressed on a college campus and what he did about it. Can you tell us the story?
Oh, jeepers. Well, I think it was in 2016 around the time of the presidential election. You know, my friends on the right and the left were being real nasty to each other. The Hillary people, the Trump people were all being real nasty. So I went out there to try to inspire some unity, pass out some information about Gary Johnson, and specifically pass out the U.S. Constitution, kind of remind us all of our common roots. And my college threatened to call the police on me if I didn't stop, and they would have me removed from campus, which led to 2 years of litigation. Pretty crazy.
What was the name of the college?
That was Los Angeles Pierce College, one of 9.
And that's in San Fernando Valley, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and now here's a little interesting backstory on that. I lived in the San Fernando Valley for a long time, and I did a lot of petitioning there. And although I never personally collected petition signatures at that college, people I know did collect signatures at college. And I actually went on that college to pick up a friend of mine who was collecting signatures, and I saw him and somebody else was there collecting signatures. So I know that petition circulators used to hit that campus. And this had been back in like maybe the early to mid 2000s.
Oh, dude.
And there was never a problem.
Some of my professors were trying to go out and just register voters, nonpartisan effort, just left, right, or otherwise, come vote. And they were told to go stand in the same free speech zone that I was corralled to, which for context is like 3 parking spaces next to each other where you're allowed to have your First Amendment rights.
Wow. Where on campus was the free speech zone?
In a sort of out-of-the-way area by the library, kind of tucked off the main walkway.
Now, it's interesting that, what year did this happen?
This was in 2016.
Okay. Well, it's interesting if you rolled back the clock. I don't know when they started cracking down on free speech, but let's say go back maybe, 8 years prior to that, and that campus was actually pretty good for free speech. So something must have happened between then. I don't know if a new person, got hired that was a jerk or what, but that's just. Did you know that prior to that campus was actually pretty good for free speech?
Absolutely. In fact, the free speech movement started in Southern California. I mean, schools like Berkeley, this was like the bastion of free speech. That's where it all started. So it was surprising to me that this policy was written in 1989, exactly 1 year before I was born. So for the entire duration of my almost 30-year life, no one has challenged this policy. It's just sat there.
Oh, so you're saying they had a policy for 30 years on the books that said you had to stand in a free speech? Well, they didn't enforce it. They must not have been enforced because, like I said, I personally saw people walking around the campus collecting petition signatures, and I know people, so obviously they weren't consistently enforcing it.
My experience is that they are enforced arbitrarily based on the whims of the administration themselves. If they like your message, they're totally down to let you go petition and break all the rules. But if they're opposed, my group was somewhat conservative looking. I'm not a conservative, but my group looked like they lean right. They're a liberty organization, so I think we were targeted for scrutiny.
Well, that's quite possible, but just to clarify, there were people working a variety of petitions on the campus, and the time that I was over there and I picked up a friend of mine, he was working some petitions that would have been for, less taxes and less government spending, and so they would have been petitions that probably would have been frowned upon by some of the administrators, but yet nobody gave him any problems. This would have been back around 2005.
See, here in 2016, I saw anti-Trump protests going on, which broke all the rules. You're not to gather outside of classrooms. You're not to use bullhorns or amplified noise. They broke all of these rules, but that was okay. The administration was there. They were present for this, and they encouraged it because they don't like Trump. I don't like them either, but the point being, if they agree with your message, you're allowed to do whatever you want. If they don't, you'll be targeted.
So it's basically arbitrary enforcement.
Big time.
Yeah, and so then what did you do about it?
Well, at first, I spent the first month trying to go through the processes of arranging meetings with the dean, going through emails and everything. They kept ignoring me. Essentially, I eventually got in contact with a group called FIRE, who helped me bring a lawsuit.
Which stands for?
The Foundation for Individual Rights in Education.
Yeah.
Wonderful group.
Now, interesting. I've actually contacted FIRE before, and when I was collecting signatures to place like Libertarian Party candidates on the ballot in other states, not in California, and they didn't do anything for me. But I think it was because I was not a student.
Yeah, they're a student advocacy group as far as I know.
Yeah. Now, weren't you the head of a campus club?
Yes, at the time I was president of Young Americans for Liberty.
Yeah, which was the Libertarian Club for college campuses started by Ron Paul.
Right.
So anyway, how long did the lawsuit drag on, and what?
2 years.
2 years, okay. But you eventually ended up winning.
Yes, sir. Well,
Yes.
The school finally decided that they were going to extend their policy to the entire campus. So you can now petition or gather signatures wherever you want.
And that's true of all the community colleges now in Los Angeles County?
Yes, sir. All 9 campuses.
Has this had an effect on community colleges in other counties?
I don't know that it has, but the great thing about this ruling is it will set precedent for other students who hope to stand up for their rights in their own campus.
I know there was another case at Citrus College, which is that Orange County, or where is that? Is that Los Angeles?
Nearby, because I remember that case. It was
Yeah,
nearby.
and it was also filed by somebody from the Young Americans for Liberty, and they were doing a plebiscite petition against NSA spying, and they didn't say he couldn't do it, but they wanted to restrict him to a free speech zone where he was cut off from talking to a lot of people, and so I believe he also contacted the fire and sued and won. Now I believe Citrus College, is that that's not a community college, is that like a university, or what? Do you know?
I must admit ignorance. I'm not familiar with Citrus.
Oh, okay. I think that case might have been. I think it was what year was your case settled? That was 2018. Yeah, 2018. Okay, and I understand there was a settlement,
Right.
like $200,000.
Went to my lawyers, but yeah.
Oh yeah, did you get any of it? I mean, I think
Not much,
since you're the one who went through it, you should have gotten something out
I
of
got
it.
a little bit, but
Yeah.
It wasn't about that. It was genuinely about enforcing principle and making sure that other students who come there after me don't have to deal with the suppression of their.
Yeah, and it's really sad how we have to fight for our free speech rights over and over again. And I've had problems. I've actually, I've done a lot of petition signature gathering around the country for the Libertarian Party and for pro-liberty ballot initiatives. And I helped get Ron Paul on the ballot when he was running the Republican primaries. And I've been hassled at colleges. And now there's some colleges that didn't hassle me, but I've been hassled at quite a few colleges. In fact, I even got arrested for petitioning at a college in Arkansas in 2000 and what year was that? 2013. Was it no, 2015? I'm sorry, it was 2015. And I was I was collecting signatures at Arkansas State University in Jonesboro. And now here, a little backstory on this. The first time I petitioned there was in 2011, and myself and another petitioner were there collecting signatures for the Libertarian Party, and they never said anything to us. We didn't get hassled at all. We were there for like 5 days, and we got a lot of signatures and had no problem. I came back 2 years later, and I was by myself, and I was out there for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours, and they told me I had to stand in a free speech zone. And the free speech zone cut me off from talking to most of the people on the campus. So I went to the ACLU, and the ACLU actually contacted them and told them that I had a right to do it and to leave me alone. And unfortunately, they refused to back down. Now, interestingly enough, I had problems at 2 other colleges in Arkansas, and the ACLU contacted these other 2 colleges, and as soon as the ACLU contacted them, they backed down, and we were able to go there and collect signatures with no problems. But this college in Jonesboro wouldn't back down. So I ended up leaving. 2 years later, I went back. Now, when I went back 2 years later, I anticipated that I might get hassled, but I figured the worst thing that would happen would be they'd tell me to stand in a free speech zone. Okay, so, and then in the interim, there had been a couple of free speech rulings in other states, not in Arkansas per se, but in other states in federal district court. They had ruled that free speech zones were unconstitutional and that you should be able to walk around the common areas of a college and engage in free speech activities. So I thought maybe there was a chance that they were going to honor these court rulings. Well, unfortunately for me, they did not, and I was. Okay. Oh, you won.
I was
Oh,
just
cool.
elected to the
Awesome.
Judicial Committee.
Awesome. Hey, late breaking news. Kevin Shaw has just been elected to the Libertarian Party of California Judicial Committee. He was just congratulated by Joshua Smith and Vermin Supreme. So that's pretty cool. We got a little good news here. But anyway, back to our little discussion here. We're almost done. Is that I was arrested. I actually went to jail for 2 days.
Jeez.
And they charged me with 4 offenses, all of which were completely bogus. And it took 1.5 years to get the charges thrown out. Yeah, it was, and it was a real hassle.
To your credit, you're not a real libertarian until you're arrested for your principles.
Yeah.
Well done to you.
Yeah, thank you. I also got arrested for petitioning in Maryland, and I was doing Libertarian Party there as well. And that time it was in front of a public library, and I actually got maced by the police.
What?
Because I wanted to. I wanted the police to give me something in writing telling me I had to leave, and they wouldn't. So I said that I was going to record them on my phone, so I had evidence. and then I would leave. I'd already agreed to leave, so I pulled out my camera, and as I was trying to get it in the video mode, one of the cops grabbed me and he started shaking my hand back and forth like this, trying to knock the camera out of my hand. So I didn't want my camera to get smashed, or my phone to get smashed on the ground. So with my other hand, I was trying to get it into the case. And while I was doing that, the second cop grabbed my other arm, and I just got the phone slipped into the case when the first cop, the one that tried to knock the phone out of my hands, grabbed a can of mace and sprayed me in the eyes with it. And I was locked in jail for like 8 hours, and they charged me with the usual disorderly conduct, resisting arrest,
But I'm confused.
trespassing.
Doesn't the Pruneyard case cover things like that? Like petitioning specifically in front of a public library should be allowed.
It should, but this was in Maryland. But even so, yeah, the Supreme Court has made there's multiple federal court cases dealing with this, and yeah, it was completely bogus. But as any libertarian, or you don't even really have to be a libertarian to know this, that the government doesn't always follow its own laws. So anyway, and in that case, I got assistance from the ACLU of Maryland, and all the charges got dropped pretty quickly. But anyway, so it's really good for folks out there to. I encourage people to follow what Kevin Shaw did. He took a very bold stand for liberty, and because if we don't have free speech, we can't communicate with each other, and that's particularly important for libertarians because we can't get our message out. So I think free speech is an essential element to having a free and society. So anyway, thanks a lot. And do you have any closing remarks you'd like to get in?
Don't tolerate authoritarianism on your campus. Stand up for yourself.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kevin Shaw.
Pleasure to speak.